Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Watercolor Wednesday. I'm Leslie Watkins. How is everybody? Happy New Year. This is the beginning of a brand new year, a fresh new canvas, a chance to get all those loose ends caught up and ready to go with new health resolutions, business decisions, reading lists, all the things. I've been spending the last week in between Christmas and New Year's getting ready for the next quarter, and I've got all sorts of ideas for upcoming classes and events, so please stay tuned to hear more about that. The thing that's coming up next is called the Post-Christmas Journal, and this is something I like to do every year after Christmas, is to collect all of the Christmas cards, the envelopes with the stamps, tags, wrapping paper, anything that can be put into a journal. Get all those things into a little box where I can just collect them all. And then what I like to do is make a journal and use all those things to decorate it so it becomes a kind of a keepsake for that Christmas. So last year when I made my Christmas journal, it was kind of gaping. It was so filled with all the different things that I wanted to keep that it was just I didn't make the spine big enough. So this year I have a solution to that problem. So now I have a way of creating the journal base so that it can grow to be exactly the size that I need for it to be. And that's going to be part of the Post-Christmas Journal workshop, which is coming right up. So if you're interested in learning how to create a base to hold all of your mementos, then this is the workshop for you. And to find out about the dates, the time, the registration, the materials, and all those things, you can go to Dandelion Cottage Design and sign up for notes from Dandelion Cottage. Now, last year's journal, I didn't finish making the cover. So let me just show you what I have. So this is what it looks like. And I started with this base, which I'm going to use, and it just has some cheesecloth and some gold vellum that's been embossed and some red and green DSP. So I'm going to use this, but what I need to do is create a centerpiece for to add to the top, because I want this to be very decorated with both paper flowers as well as a little watercolor behind, and that's what we're going to do today. So this is going to be a very simple watercolor. My Christmas roses are blooming their heads off still. It looks like they're going to be blooming throughout the entire month of January, and they're just gorgeous. And I was out there this morning and I took a picture, so I will post that later so you can see how they're developing. But what I'd like to do is add a panel to the front here and use this to do a background watercolor of the Christmas roses on, and then I'm going to embellish it with gold ink and paper flowers so that it has a kind of a 3D effect. So let me show you what I have in mind. So I'm going to get out my pencil and a brush, and I also need some paper. So this is pretty good. And I'm just going to tear this down to size. we go. So let's see. So actually, it's pretty close. I think I'll leave that just as is so that that gold vellum is poking out. And then what I'll do is I will tear this down. This is hot press watercolor paper. And I'm going to fold this back on itself a couple of times. Now, if you are in the watercolor card club, you'll remember that last month I talked about how to design a decorative border. So I'm going to be using a little bit of the information from that lesson here. This is going to go on there something like that, just enough so that that gold vellum forms a nice border. And I'm going to have that band going across the journal, keeping it closed. So there's going to be a space here that I'm not going to decorate too heavily. So most of the watercolor is going to be up in this upper portion of the paper. So here is my beautiful specimen. So this is the Helboris Niger, the Christmas rose. It's got a little soot on it from my fireplace, so we can take that off. This particular plant grows right outside my cottage, right along the path to the woodpile, so I can see it during the winter and I can make sure I'm not going to miss any of the beautiful development as it opens. But sometimes a little bit of soot blows out of the fireplace, and that's what got on there. So there it is. Here's the back. Okay, so you can see all of those beautiful colors. Alright, so the beautiful mahogany in the stem, the greens, a little bit of a kind of a rusty tone on the petal there, and then of course the pale yellow and the greens on the center. Now I also picked a leaf, so here's what the leaf looks like. So if you can imagine this all growing together, something like that, and blooming in the middle of winter under the snow, although we don't have snow out here today. But anyway, there is the beautiful Christmas rose. That's my subject. Excuse me. So I'm going to begin with a quick sketch. This is not going to be a very elaborate watercolor. This is meant to be a decoration. So I'm going to have my main flower here, and if the pencil's a little bit light, just give me a minute. You'll be able to see better as I continue sketching. So I have 5 petals here. So there are they're kind of overlapped, and I just want to pay attention to see which petals are overlapping the others, so I can get the character of this particular flower. I want to make sure I have the petals pointing in the appropriate direction. So really it almost looks like a beautiful star. There's Houdini. Houdini hears me talking, and he says, Happy New Year. Alright, so there's a flower, and then I do want some of the green of the leaves. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit. I also want to get that stem, so let's get the stem started. It's got this little bud developing. And then I can add my leaf. Has a little toothy edge. Another one coming up through here. And I'm changing the direction of the leaves a little bit to suit my design and to fit the proportions of the paper that I'm working on. So it's not just as I see it, but I am using the leaves for reference. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then down here, maybe I'll have a bud. Remember, my strap's going to be going across there, so I could just sketch in a little bud coming from down below. Maybe another leaf in the background. There we go. All right, so there's my sketch. All right, and I forgot to turn off the ceiling fan. Let me do that real quick so you don't have to hear that. For my watercolors, I'm using my yellow, red, and blue. And I've got those just off to the side here. Got my flower. Where can I put this so you can see it? There we go. Something like that. All right, now I'm just going to begin with a light wash. So I'll get my center started, and I can add just a pale yellow wash to my leaves as an underpainting. This leaf at the bottom I want to have going back into space. So for that one I'm just going to use kind of a pale green tone. And then remember, my stem has a lot of red in it, so I'm going to mix up kind of a dull reddish tone. I'm kind of mixing everything on my palette together here, making a kind of a mud, and that's fine. So I get that started. Same over here. And then that bud has a little bit more green on it. Okay, so there's my basic underpainting. Mixing up a kind of a neutral, cool, grayish tone. So basically a violet with a touch of yellow in it to make it a little more neutral. And I'm going to use this as my shadow color in my flower. So I'm just going to get these places established where the petals are overlapping one another, where the shadow areas are. Okay, getting that started. And let's get some green on these leaves. And I want to leave a little bit of that yellow showing for the veining. So I'm going to stay away from the center vein and just come along something like this. Alright, so there's one leaf done, or the middle tone done anyway. I still have a ways to go. And as I'm painting these leaves, I'm also looking at these little kind of toothy edges and paying attention to the spacing between each one of those little sections. And I'm using the tip of my brush to get those nice sharp points. And finally, get some color on this one. Okay. All right, so you can start to see this shaping up a little bit. Now I'm going to go back in and begin to put some of my darker shadow areas. So for instance, where the cast shadows are. And if you're unsure as to where the shadows are, then I would recommend that you work from life. Okay, so see if you can get some kind of a subject to paint from, and set up a little area in your studio or your kitchen table or wherever you're working, that you have some nice natural light, and that's going to help you to observe the movement of light on the various forms. And if that sounds like a foreign language to you, then you may want to consider joining us in the watercolor card club, where I talk at length about the movement of light and cast shadows and highlights and all the tools that you have available to you as an artist to help you to define form, so that it makes sense when your viewer looks at your work. All right, now these leaves need some attention, so I'm mixing up some green. I'm taking my very dirty yellow, kind of cleaning it as I go, and putting a little bit of blue in there. And this time I'm using less water, more paint. Now, remember I said this is going to be used as a decoration on the front of my Christmas journal, so I'm not going to get too involved with the painting. I'm just going to work a few more minutes on it, and then I'm going to call it done. And also, a lot of this is going to be covered up, so you really do not need to paint a masterpiece here. Okay, just a quick decoration. I have to get some shading on that bud, so I'll do that next. Again, just mixing the red, yellow, and blue on my palette to get a cool, neutral. So if I just mix up a little bit of violet and add a drop of yellow, that's going to gray it down. And I can just use that to give this bud a little more dimension. Flower. And then the center of the flower has all of these wonderful anthers, and I want to, there are way too many to paint, but what I can do is I can kind of indicate the growth pattern, so they're sort of spiraling out of the center, so I can just add a couple little touches here and there to give that impression. And it also gives me a chance to add a little of these warm, darker yellows and kind of orangey tones, which are making the other colors in the picture perk up. There we go. And then finally, I'm just going to put in a couple of accents here and there. These are the darkest darks. So I have some under here on the stem, maybe to the side of the bud, the base of some of these leaves, coming down the side. There we go. And then I do want to put a little bit of drawing into the flower here. So again, I'm just going to go back to those places where the petals are overlapping one another. And I can soften that a little bit. My bud, same thing. And then finally, for a little bit of detail, that the stem has those markings on it, so I can just indicate a few of those with these tiny little brush strokes. I'm using a very fine brush that allows me to get a nice sharp point, so I can do this a little more careful detail. Okay, that's enough. So there is the beginning of my decoration for the front of my Christmas journal. Let me zoom you out a little bit. Oops, too much. Let's go back in. And I think that top of the flower is getting a little bit lost back there, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a little tone, and I'm just going to pick out those petals a little bit and just let that disappear into the background, just to give that flower a little more, a little more contrast, help it to stand out a little bit better. And maybe a little bit over here too, to continue around. And then I'll just let it fade off. Okay, there we go. All right, everybody. So tomorrow is Paper Crafting Thursday, and I'm going to continue with what I'm doing here, and I'm going to show you how I add the various other elements, and I'll probably be adding some gold ink and various other embellishments, and I'm probably going to do a little bit of stitching as well. So so stay tuned for that. I'll be back here tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. If you're interested in joining us in the post-Christmas journal workshop, please be sure that you are signed up to receive notes from Dandelion Cottage Design. If you're watching on Facebook, there's a button up in the banner. It says sign up. That'll take you right there. And if you're watching the replay, I will post the link in the description. So I hope you have a wonderful, creative rest of your day. Get busy collecting all of those Christmas cards, wrapping paper, ribbons, trim, all the goodies that you have to decorate your journal, and we'll get started very soon. Stay well, stay happy, stay creative, and I will see you next time.